What's up, everybody? Marvel the Cross 316 back with another comic flashback. And today, folks, we are looking at the Invincible Iron Man issue number 5. This issue came out in September of 1968. And today, folks, we're going to be seeing the first appearance of this guy. His name is Cerebrus, and he's going to be this mechanical robot that's from the 24th century. And so it's pretty unique here. Iron Man's going to be traveling to the 24th century, but he's not really going to be traveling there, as we'll soon find out. So let's go ahead now and get started. Today's title is Frenzy in a Far-Flung Future. I love the font on this here. And this issue is brought to you by Stan Lee, who edited this issue. We have Archie Goodwin on the writing. We have George Tuska on the artwork, Johnny Craig on the inking, and Watanabe on the lettering. And so let's go ahead now and get started. We see that Tony Stark here he's feeling these shimmering, radiant whirlpool of light. It's engulfing him and it's paralyzing him for some reason. And so what is it? Where did it come from? Well, we're soon going to find out as he is being drawn into this light. And all he remembers is that at one point in time, the Mandarin used this kind of scenario, but this is not the Mandarin that he's dealing with. Instead, what we see is that he is going to materialize and go into the 24th century. Crazy stuff here. These bunch of guards come and they're like, quickly, the judges are waiting. And what in the world is going on here? Time probe, judges, I don't understand. Gotta learn what's happening, how to get back. Mustn't miss the explosive test. So Tony Stark is supposed to go to this explosive test in his own time period, but if he misses it, he won't be there to advise it. And so that's not good. And so what we see is that he is standing in front of a mass sea of people, and they've all judged him to be executed. And he's been brought to the 24th century, like I said. And the reason for this is that in the 24th century, there's this robot, this computer, rather, that controls mankind. And Tony Stark is responsible for creating this computer called Cerebrus. And so here's a little bit of an origin story. He says, understandable, Mr. Stark, you don't understand that you invented Cerebrus, but in this century, we know your creation all too well, for it threatens to annihilate us. It threatens to annihilate mankind. It's like, how can a computer threaten to annihilate mankind? Well, we're soon going to find out here that way back in the 20th century, there was Tony Stark, and he's, as we know, is a great inventor. I mean, he's created the Iron Man armor, for goodness sake. But he says, as conceived by you, Cerebrus began as a huge, incredibly sophisticated master computer for use in coordinating your country's defense planning. It was so successful the government had you improve it, enabling it to function in any area. Others had devised large-scale computers, but only the inventive genius of Tony Stark could have perfected one of such magnitude. There was no limit to its uses, and in time it functioned on an international level, constantly being enlarged to fantastic proportions. As years passed, it gradually assumed a personality of its own, even acquiring the ability to expand itself as necessary. And so that's what's happened. This computer has grown to a proportion where it's controlling everything, as it says, the crop rotation plan 738C in India. There's projections indicate no revisions necessary in renewal of last year's nuclear control treaty. I mean, everything's being controlled by Cerebrus at this point. And so this guard says Cerebrus swelled like a mammoth mechanical spiderweb until it engulfed the world. And finally, Cerebrus ceased serving mankind, and we demanded we serve it. And so the world had grown almost totally different on Cerebrus's monolithic might. Many gave in to become zombie-like slaves of the machine. Others decided to fight. And so some served Cerebrus, some rebelled, and those who rebelled were executed. And so we see that Tony Stark has been brought to the 24th century because they think that he is responsible for creating this and he should be executed for him. So they say, take him away. All of a sudden, while he's being brought to the execution chamber, some of the coils of Cerebrus track down these guards here who are threatening to annihilate Tony Stark. And for a good reason, because Tony Stark is responsible for creating this monstrosity. And the mechanized computer of Cerebrus can detect when there is a rebellion. So here comes these mindless slaves and they take down these guards here. And Tony Stark is like, I got to get out of here. I got to find out how I can get myself back to my own time period. And it sucks that I don't have my armor with me. I mean, it's been left 400 years in the past. And so he is just on his own. He's walking through this cave when all of a sudden some hands grab a hold of him and says, do not despair, Anthony Stark. And out comes this beautiful lady named Krilla. And she's going to explain to him that she is this historian. She knows a lot about Tony Stark from the past, and she's here to help him because she only knows the only way to defeat Cerebrus and all these hideouts to hide from these guards. And so they're going to go into this little cave here and hide from these soldiers. And she says, it is as I hoped. They rush on in pursuit of echoes. And then Tony Stark whispers, Krilla, are you sure you should be doing this? Going against your own people to help me? But Krilla says, in the matter of your own execution, I have opposed them from the start. But they would not listen. As invented by you, Cerebrus was no better or worse than any creation of mankind. To me, any fault lies with later generations who became so dependent on the computer they lost the will to function on their own. He said, I'm an historian, Mr. Stark, but my people are no longer interested in lessons of the past. I couldn't convince them of the futility of committing one evil to oppose another, or of the risk they took in tampering with the time. And that's the one thing we have to worry about is if Tony Stark dies in the 24th century, then time will alter in the 20th century and a lot of things differently could happen. So she brings Tony Stark to this museum, and in this case is the old armor that Iron Man wore back in the 20th century. Now, Krilla doesn't know that Tony Stark was Iron Man in the 20th century, but she tells him that he needs to put on the armor, and by doing that, he has a fighting chance of taking down Cerebrus. So he does, without telling her that he knows everything about the Stark armor. And so here he comes up against these mindless slaves. He's going to take down the slaves of Cerebrus here. And he's going to be protecting Krilla from here on out, as we see. He definitely thinks Krilla is gorgeous, and I mean, yes, she is very gorgeous. And she says, please don't worry for my sake. I can fight if necessary. In the museum, I found a blast capsule that will, but in comes some of Cerebrus's mechanisms here. So the big part of the last part of this issue is getting that blast capsule, because that blast capsule will help defeat Cerebrus. And then comes these giant robots that Cerebrus has created. This computer has become so advanced that it creates its own army of robots. And so we see that Tony Stark as Iron Man is going to have his mission to defeat something that he has created, something that he's created in the future. And in comes the face of Cerebrus. Cerebrus has gotten so powerful that he can basically form any face that he wants. And so that's how powerful and advanced Cerebrus has become. And so we see that he's going to attack Iron Man with this amplified blast. But it says, my sensor units indicate such impact would have killed any ordinary man, yet all reaction probes confirm it has merely stunned you. Robots take a hold of Krilla, and in comes the true form of Cerebrus, the person that we saw on the cover here of today's issue. And he's a humongous being here. So Iron Man definitely is going to have a fight on his hands. First, he's going to tackle these robots, takes them down, as we soon see. Once again, these are well done artwork here, well done. And so we see that Iron Man is going to try his best to defend and attack Cerebrus as much as he can. But Cerebrus says that he can take all of the world's energy and use that energy to heal himself. And so how can you do that? How can anybody defeat something that has become the world? But Iron Man says, no, Cerebrus, the world is people, not geography, not massive machinery. As long as there are people to strive, to dream, to care, I'll fight. And so that's what happens here, as Iron Man is going to continue to not lose any hope. He's going to continue to fight. They're like, what? You still move? Then prepare now for the death stroke. But Iron Man, in a last desperate attack or defense here, he takes off his helmet here. And I don't know why they drew this like this, where it's like he's taking off a mask. It's supposed to be a helmet. But anyway, Cerebrus finds out that his creator, he's battling his creator, and he can't destroy the creator because then it would destroy himself. And because of the strain, he starts to malfunction here. And we see that then Krilla is going to throw that blast pellet. She was able to retrieve it from the museum, and vroom, down goes Cerebrus. Tony Stark is then going to fly Krilla as quickly as possible. She warns Tony here that they have to make it back in time and get into the time probe before the world's energy just is annihilated. And so she then pushes the lever, and Tony Stark is sent back into the 20th century. And when he returns, it still says that it's June 4th, and he returns back to the very second that he had left. And so he's able to go to his meeting like he wanted. But the unfortunate thing was he had to leave Krilla behind, and part of his self is still in the 24th century. He longs to be with her. He thought that she was very beautiful and would love to get to know her more. But unfortunately, that's what happened. And so that's how we end this issue. Coming up next, folks, we have Vengeance Cries the Crusher. Who is the Crusher? And we're going to find all this out as we look at issue number 6 coming up next. But before then, go ahead now and give this video a like. Comment down below what you liked about this issue. Subscribe if you have not. And I will see y'all in the next one.